Janet Williams stood at her position on the Family Feud stage, her hand unconsciously reaching for the purple heart pendant around her neck. It was the 20th time she'd touched it since the show began, and Steve Harvey noticed. "All right, Williams family, you're doing great," Steve said with his trademark warmth. "But Mrs. Janet, I've got to ask. You keep touching that necklace. Something special about it?" Janet's hand froze. She gave a small, sad smile. "It's just a reminder, Mr. Harvey, of someone who can't be here today." Steve's expression softened immediately. He'd seen that look before, the hollow pride of military families carrying on while someone they loved served far from home. "Military family?" "Yes, sir," Janet's husband Robert answered, putting his arm around his wife. "Our son Marcus, Marine Corps, second deployment." The audience applauded warmly, as they always did for military families. Steve nodded respectfully. "Where's he stationed?" Janet started, then stopped. "Can we talk about something else?" "I'm sorry. We're here to have fun, right? To play the game." Steve recognized the deflection but didn't push. "Of course. Let's play the game." They completed the round, the Williams family extending their lead. As soon as the commercial break was called, Steve walked over to Janet. The cameras were still rolling for behind-the-scenes footage. "Janet," Steve said gently, "I've been doing this show for a long time. I know when something's weighing on someone. You don't have to tell me, but sometimes it helps to talk." Janet looked at her family, who all nodded encouragingly. Her daughter Kesha spoke up. "Tell him, Mama. It's okay." Janet took a deep breath. "Marcus isn't stationed anywhere right now. He's at Walter Reed Medical Center in Maryland." Steve's face grew serious. "What happened?" Robert answered, his voice steady but strained. "September 12th, 2024. His unit was providing security for a convoy outside Mosul, Iraq. They were helping evacuate civilians from a village when insurgents attacked. Marcus was vehicle commander." Janet continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Their vehicle hit an IED. The vehicle rolled down an embankment." Kesha picked up the story when her mother couldn't continue. The vehicle was upside down, leaking fuel. His driver was unconscious. The gunner had shrapnel wounds and couldn't move. The translator was trapped. "Marcus had a clear path out through his hatch," Robert said, pride breaking through his pain. "His door was damaged, but working. He could have gotten out clean, but he went back in 3 times. He pulled each one out while the vehicle was smoking and insurgents were still firing from the ridgeline. He got them all to safety," Kesha said, "set up a defensive position with just his sidearm and 1 rifle, called for medevac and held that position for 20 minutes until the quick reaction force arrived." Steve stood in respectful silence for a moment. "The 3 men he saved," Janet whispered, "all alive. Corporal Jackson, the driver, severe concussion but recovered fully. Lance Corporal Rodriguez, the gunner, lost partial hearing in 1 ear, but he's back with his family. And Malik, the translator, he's here now in America with his family. Marcus's actions qualified him for the special immigrant visa." "And Marcus?" Steve asked gently. Janet's composure cracked slightly. "Shrapnel in his left shoulder and leg. 3 surgeries. He's been at Walter Reed for 4 months. 4 months of physical therapy, learning to use his arm again. He can walk now, but the nerve damage. He's missed everything," Robert added quietly. "His daughter Jasmine's 2nd birthday, teaching her to ride her little bike, every bedtime story. She asks for Daddy every night, and all we can do is show her a tablet screen. My son is a hero," Janet said firmly. "Bronze Star with valor, Purple Heart. But I know he'd trade every medal just to tuck his baby into bed without being 3,000 miles away." Steve was about to respond when he noticed his executive producer, Marcus Freeman, walking toward them with unusual urgency. This was highly irregular. Freeman never came on set during taping unless something significant was happening. "Steve," Freeman said loud enough for his mic to pick up, "I need you to take this right now. We have an urgent call." Steve looked confused. "Marcus, we're in the middle of taping. We're about to come back from commercial in 30 seconds. This absolutely cannot wait," Freeman insisted. He was carrying a phone and his expression was unreadable but intense. "It's about the Williams family. This is time sensitive." Janet grabbed Robert's hand. "Oh God, is it Marcus? Did something happen?" Freeman held up his hand. "Mrs. Williams, everything is okay." "Better than okay. Steve, please take this call." Steve took the phone, completely bewildered. The audience had noticed something unusual was happening and had grown quiet. "Hello?" Steve said into the phone. The voice on the other end was clear and authoritative. "Mr. Harvey, this is Colonel James Morrison, Marcus Williams's commanding officer, calling from Camp Pendleton." Janet's legs nearly gave out. Robert steadied her. "Is he okay? Please, is our son okay?" Steve held the phone so everyone could hear. "Go ahead, Colonel." "Mr. Harvey, I'm calling because Lance Corporal Williams has been keeping a secret from his family. 2 weeks ago he was discharged from Walter Reed. He's completed his physical therapy ahead of schedule. Remarkably ahead of schedule." Janet gasped. "What? Then where is he? Why didn't he call?" The colonel's voice carried a smile. "Ma'am, your son wanted to do something special. He's been working with the Family Feud producers and some very important people to surprise you. Marcus, do you want to take over?" The phone speaker crackled, and then a familiar voice came through. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad." Janet fell to her knees, sobbing. "Marcus, baby, is that you?" "It's me, Mom. I'm okay. I'm really okay. And Mom, I need you to know something. The doctors cleared me for full duty, but I'm not going back. I'm done. Honorable discharge after this tour. I'm coming home for good." "When?" Robert asked, his voice breaking. "When are you coming home, son?" "Dad," Marcus said, and they could hear the emotion in his voice, "I need you all to turn around." The entire Williams family turned slowly. Walking onto the Family Feud stage was Lance Corporal Marcus Williams in his dress blues, looking thinner than when he'd left, but strong. His left arm showed limited movement, and he walked with a slight limp, but he was walking on his own. His bronze star and purple heart were prominent on his chest. Janet ran to her son, crashing into him with such force that everyone worried she might hurt his injuries. But Marcus stood firm, wrapping his arms around his mother, his left arm moving stiffly but functioning. "I'm home, Mom. I'm home for good." Robert joined them, embracing both his wife and son. Kesha and the rest of the family surrounded them in a group hug that seemed to last forever. The audience was on their feet, many crying openly. Steve had to remove his glasses to wipe his eyes. Marcus gently extracted himself from the embrace. "Wait, there's more," he said, turning toward the side of the stage. "I brought some people with me." 3 men walked onto the stage. The first was an African-American Marine in dress blues, with corporal chevrons. The second was a young Hispanic Marine, also in dress blues. The third was an Iraqi man in a suit, walking with his wife and young son. "Mom, Dad," Marcus said, "these are the men who they say I saved, but the truth is we saved each other. Corporal Jackson, Lance Corporal Rodriguez, and Malik Hassan, our translator." Corporal Jackson stepped forward first. "Mrs. Williams, your son didn't just pull me from that vehicle. He stayed with me when I was unconscious, keeping my airway clear while taking fire. He could have left me and saved himself, but he didn't." Lance Corporal Rodriguez spoke next, his voice thick with emotion. "Ma'am, when I got hit with shrapnel, I was bleeding bad. Marcus used his own tourniquet on me, leaving himself unprotected. He literally gave me the medical supplies that were meant for him." Malik Hassan, the translator, had tears in his eyes as he spoke with a slight accent. "Mrs. Williams, I am not a soldier. I was just a translator trying to help my country and feed my family. When the vehicle rolled, the American Marines had no obligation to risk their lives for me. But your son, he came back for me last, even though the fuel was leaking more and more. He told me, 'You're one of us. We don't leave anyone behind.' Because of him, my wife has a husband, my son has a father, and we have a new life in America." Malik's young son, maybe 6 years old, stepped forward and handed Janet a drawing. It was a child's picture of a soldier helping people, with hero written in crayon at the top. "I drew this for Marcus's mama," the boy said, shyly. "He saved my papa." Janet knelt down and hugged the child, sobbing. Steve stepped forward, visibly moved. "Marcus, tell us about that day." Marcus stood at attention, though his mother still held his good hand tightly. "Mr. Harvey, that day was supposed to be routine. We were helping evacuate civilians who'd been caught between insurgent groups, families who just wanted to live in peace." He paused, collecting himself. "When the IED hit, everything went sideways. The vehicle weighs about 14 tons, but it flipped like a toy. When we stopped rolling, I could smell the fuel, see smoke starting. My shoulder was messed up from the impact, shrapnel in my leg, but I could move." But you were injured, Steve prompted. Sir, everyone in that vehicle was somebody's son, somebody's father, somebody's hope, Marcus said simply. Jackson has 2 little girls. Rodriguez just got married 6 months ago. Malik was 2 weeks away from getting his visa approved to bring his family to safety. Their lives mattered more than my injuries. Tell them about the 20 minutes, Jackson interjected. Tell them what you did. Marcus looked uncomfortable. It wasn't anything special. With respect, Lance Corporal, shut up, Jackson said, making everyone laugh through their tears. This man held a defensive position with a separated shoulder and shrapnel in his leg. He was down to 1 magazine of ammunition, using controlled shots to keep the insurgents back while the rest of us were either unconscious or bleeding. 20 minutes of pure determination, Rodriguez added. He kept talking to us the whole time, keeping us conscious, telling jokes, stories about his daughter, anything to keep us awake and fighting. Steve turned to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're witnessing today isn't just a reunion. It's Americans taking care of their own. He looked back at Marcus. I understand there's been more than just physical challenges. Marcus adjusted his stance, his left arm still stiff. Yes, sir. The medical bills, even with VA coverage, have been overwhelming. The rehabilitation, the surgeries, the medications. And my wife Shayla had to reduce her hours at work to take care of our daughter alone. We're behind on everything, Shayla admitted quietly, standing at the edge of the stage. Mortgage, car payments, credit cards. Mom and Dad Williams have been helping, but they're struggling too. Janet shook her head. It doesn't matter. Bills are just bills. Our son is home. Steve looked at his producer, who nodded. Well, I think it's time we did something about that. Marcus, did you know that your unit back in Iraq has been busy? Marcus looked confused. My unit? 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, Steve said. They started something called Operation Homecoming. Every Marine in your unit contributed to a fund for your family, but it didn't stop there. It spread to the entire regiment, then to Marines at Camp Pendleton, then across the Corps. Freeman handed Steve a tablet. As of this morning, Operation Homecoming has raised $426,000 for your family. Janet gasped. Robert had to sit down. Marcus looked stunned. That's impossible, Marcus said. Why would they? Because Marines take care of Marines, Corporal Jackson answered. And because your story reminded everyone what no one left behind really means, Steve continued. But that's not all. Marcus, we've been in contact with several organizations. The Wounded Warrior Project is covering all your medical expenses going forward. The SEAL 5 Fund is paying off your mortgage. And the Gary Sinise Foundation is modifying your house to accommodate your injuries, all free of charge. Shayla was crying so hard she could barely stand. This can't be real. It's real, Steve assured her. But we're not done. He turned to face the cameras directly. Ladies and gentlemen, what we've witnessed today is more than television. It's a reminder that freedom isn't free. It's paid for by families like the Williams family, by young men and women who run toward danger instead of away from it. Steve looked at Marcus standing with his fellow Marines. These men, what they did in Iraq, it matters. Not because it was war, but because it was love. Love for each other. Love for their country. Love for families they might never meet, but were determined to protect. And now, Steve continued, it's our turn to show that same love back. To make sure no veteran struggles alone. To make sure no military family loses their home while their loved one is recovering from wounds earned in our service. The audience erupted in applause. Marcus stood there, his brothers beside him, his family around him, tears streaming down his face. A young woman walked onto the stage carrying a 2-year-old girl with Marcus's eyes and Janet's smile. It was Shayla and Jasmine, their daughter. Daddy! Jasmine squealed, reaching for Marcus. Marcus caught her with his good arm, holding her against his chest as tears streamed down his face. Hi, Princess. Daddy's home. You got Owies? Jasmine asked, touching his medals gently. Yeah, baby. Daddy got some Owies. But I'm all better now. Shayla embraced them both, careful of Marcus's shoulder. 4 months, she whispered. 4 months of her asking for you every single day. Never again, Marcus promised. I'm never leaving again. Steve gave them a moment before speaking again. Marcus, I want you to know something. Your story has already made a difference. Since we started taping this episode 2 hours ago, we've received over 3,000 emails from veterans wanting to help, offering support, sharing their own stories. You've started something. Marcus stood up, holding his sleeping daughter. Mr. Harvey, I'm just one Marine. There are thousands who've done more, sacrificed more. Maybe, Steve said. But you're the one here today reminding us that heroes come home needing our support, that they come home to daughters who need their fathers, to wives who need their husbands, to parents who need their sons. Steve turned to the camera. If you're watching this and you know a veteran, check on them, not just on Veterans Day, but every day. Ask how they're doing. Ask what they need, because they've given us everything, and the least we can do is make sure they know they're not forgotten. As the show wrapped up, Marcus stood with his family, surrounded by love and support. His injuries were visible, the stiff shoulder, the slight limp, the scars on his hands. But they no longer seemed like limitations. They were proof of service, of sacrifice, of love so profound it transcends personal safety. The episode ended with a simple dedication. To all who serve, all who wait, and all who come home different than they left, America sees you, honors you, and stands ready to help you heal.